shin, which he may do, then I can just bring my knee to the inside. If he starts blocking this leg, I can bring my knee over his shoulder. So I'm
continuing with our lie.
With our lie, but we said we would teach you a leg drag, but we're still not going to teach it to you.
But holy cow, is this important?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about, like, earlier on in the videos, when it comes to alignment, where, like, it doesn't really matter what moves I know. If I can't create the context for that move to be successful, then that move is useless to me. So before we teach you the leg drag and the knee cut, we want to help you create a context whereby you can choose which one is the right one to do, and whereby you can force your opponent to start to give you the reactions you want. So if I get you on your back,
and there will even be a little pass in this video.
Yeah.
So
like, again, as a beginner, this is something you may be able to use, much like I think we mentioned in the Kazushi video. Some Kazushis will just be sweeps. This is like a response or an attempt to draw a response that may end up with a guard pass at the beginner level. So we mentioned earlier how we're grabbing at the ankles. What I want to do with this ankle control is create a frame with my arm to access Rory's shin as a lever. So yeah, let's go with your head towards the camera. What I want to do is go from a facing position to being beside Rory to some angle. And there are two things I need to achieve for that to occur. One, I need to move. Two, I need to keep him from following me. The response I want to draw is actually when I move, is that he will follow me. But I want to make it difficult for him, or difficult enough for him to follow me, that I'll feel some tension from his legs that will allow me to start to initiate the leg drag. So if I want to move to my right, I'm going to take a slight step to my right while I rotate my chest from, like, in front of him. Like right now, if we were to draw a line bisecting him from his head to his taint, my bisected head taint line would be lined up with his. I'm going to move offline, and I'm going to lock my arm out, and I'm starting to push Rory's hips in the opposite direction. One of the things about guard passing that you'll find is it's way easier, and again, we mentioned this in the previous videos, like if someone's hips are turned away, as the guard player, his life is way more difficult. He's forced to make a choice to either, well, Granby or get his guard passed. So when I start doing this, if Rory were to just not do anything, I'm like, oh, cool, I'm just gonna put my knee on you and I'm gonna pass your guard. Again, not likely to happen against anyone good, but at the beginning, if I take one step and I feel no tension from Rory, he's not rotating, he's not following me, I just keep going and I keep my arms locked out.
My ability now to try and turn it, you can see how I don't have really anything for base here. Rob has these frames accessing my legs as levers. I can't turn into him, and if I extend out, this doesn't
Then it just rotates him over easily into the leg drag. Even if Rory's using his right arm to brace his hip,
my ability to
still can't turn into me very well.
I'm not going to get this bottom leg in. My ability to now actually high leg and even low leg is like, I just have such a shorter range of motion that you're ready for.
Yeah, and as I start to circle here, if Rory extends his arm out to block my shin, which he may do, then I can just bring my knee to the inside. If he starts blocking this leg, I can bring my knee over his shoulder. So I'm putting him to a pretty bad choice. Any one of the things that he does will lead to me at least being able to attempt a guard pass. And if he's framing against his own leg, then he can't Granby. If he's not framing against his own leg, he can Granby, but I've got an awful lot of control over him. So I'm putting him to the choice that he will, as a more experienced player, not want to make. He'll know that that's coming. He'll know that the control that I'm gaining by getting to a dominant angle with double lever control against these legs is going to be a problem for him. And he's going to have a really easy solution for that, which is he's just going to immediately turn his hips.
Just by me doing this, you can see how as Rob steps off to the side now, right now, there's frames and I've got this base behind me, so if Rob leans into me, even with not doing anything, I can absorb this. Just by me having that angle. So I have to do this. It creates that predictable response. It's like a jab in boxing. You're not expecting to pass my guard off this, just like you're not expecting to knock somebody out from there. But when I react to it, that's going to be setting up your next attack.
Exactly. So I'm controlling both of Rory's ankles. And as I step to the angle, I can expect him to follow me. What's yet to come in these subsequent videos is what we're going to be doing with the ankle position relative to, like, my, let's say, inside leg. If I'm moving to my left, to my right, my left leg. If his ankles are to the outside of my leg, I'll be pursuing a leg drag. If his ankles are to the inside of my leg, I'll be pursuing a knee cut. So we'll go into a little bit more detail on that, but that's what we want to do, is draw the response of, if I move right, I can expect his hips to follow me and his legs to start to orient towards me. They'll either be keeping his feet relatively together or somewhat apart. And now I know, based on that initial response, which again, good people will give you. We want to, as much as this is a beginner series and we want to kind of hold your hand as you learn this complicated shit, we also want to give you something that is scalable and it's modular. So I always tell my students from day one, I'm teaching you to beat black belts. I don't really care what works on beginners. So even though this is a beginner series, this is how, as a beginner, I can take this step, and if I get an advanced response, okay, now I have to try to think about my leg drag or my knee cut. If I take the step and I don't get that advanced response, okay, cool. I can just move somebody out of the way.
And that can be sometimes a hurdle for people when they're first learning, is that we are trained to beat trained people, and sometimes when you're going up against people that are giving you untrained responses, you hesitate for a second. You're like,
that wasn't supposed to
I'm not
happen.
gonna get that. And so you want to make sure that you're not just going tunnel vision on something and trying to force a technique when it's not the right time or place. And so this is what we experience all the time when we're teaching beginners. I was just doing this with the private classes that I was working on, that if I have this position and I walk across like this and Rob hasn't turned, and now I'm like, I'm a leg drag. Oh my God, I gotta try and move him from over here. It's just, he didn't give me anything from here. And I know that I'm able to just keep on putting this pressure on and just walk around him, regardless of what leg I'm using the pin. Sometimes you can even drop the shoulder. So make sure that when we're practicing this, that you have your partner not just sit there like a dead fish. This is an exercise for the both of you. And I mean, it's a cooperative dance when we're drilling. You need to have a partner that's engaged in your learning as well. So here, as I start to move, now Rob moves. And that's going to start to give me the option to start setting up the leg drag, which we are actually going to do in the next video.
Yeah, and before we get to that, we should mention one more thing. It won't always be as simple as I take step right, he gives me the response, I leg drag. We will elaborate on this point, but we will need to occasionally be like, right, left, until you get enough of a response to where you feel you can start redirecting someone. So like, we will talk about this in the leg drag video, but just something I wanted to make sure to mention before we wrapped up.
This ending wasn't anywhere near as good.